おす。アニメ兄貴です。ようこそ、おかまたち、おたとも。In a previous video, I promised that I would go over 飛び降りる and the different ways to write it out and what they all mean. The short and simple of that is if you write it in hiragana, you'll be fine. If you are not caring about how to write it, if you say it, it still has the same meaning. So if you just remember that Tobioriru means to jump off or to descend from a platform or to fall from a platform, you're fine. But if you want to go into some of the specifics of the different ways to write it, we can take a look at what I probably should have done to begin with in the episode. If you write it like this in hiragana, you're totally fine. You don't need to worry about writing all the other characters. Tobi-o-ri-ru. But if you are going to write the characters, and yes, I do regret writing them in the last video because now I have to explain what they mean in a little bit more detail. But the tobi we talked about before, the root verb version of that we talked about in the last episode was tobu. So we went with this character, and you can see it's got the little bird wing, so you know it means to fly. So tobu here, this is fly, like a bird would fly or an airplane would fly. So we're building a set of connotations here. We're thinking birds, airplanes. We're thinking about stuff that is airborne. So you're floating, so to speak, things that are suspended in the air. Now, oriru, in the last video, we went with this character. And this we talked about means to fall or to descend. What we didn't mention in the last video is that this also can mean to get off. So if you're on a mode of transportation and you want to get off that transportation, you would oriru from that. So if you're in a taxi, you can get out of the taxi by oriru. If you're on a train, etc. So this means to alight or to disembark. So you can see the connotations of this word. They're a little bit different from some of the other ways that we might write this out. Obviously, if you write it in hiragana, there aren't really any connotations for the characters themselves, but that word sort of encompasses all of the different meanings. So if you're writing it generically, again, the meaning is really just to jump off of something or to fall and land at a lower height. So you're talking about to jump from a higher level altitude, land at a lower level altitude. That's your hiragana, very basic understanding of it. Now when you incorporate the characters, this tobu here, this character, there's a mild connotation of being suspended in the air. So you're thinking about a jump with a little bit of distance in it. So not just a mild descend, but we're talking like, again, jumping off of a building. There's a section of that jump where you're airborne. Now, I said that there were other ways to write this. Before I show the next way to write it, I want to do a quick refresher. If you remember jiko manzoku, so this character here, if you remember all of that, the manzoku in there, so this section of that character, we talked about last time this meaning, give me a second, manzoku. I said in the first video when we reviewed this word that this was the character for foot. So I didn't explain how to say that. Ashi is how you say foot in Japanese. So that's how you would read that. Obviously, you can also read this as zoku and in a jukugo. But this character alone can also become a radical in other characters. So if you see it written out like this in other characters, they're the same. So one of the other ways to write tobu is actually like this. And so you'll see there is that foot radical in this character. So again, this is tobu. So you can understand just by looking at that foot radical that this character probably has something to do with your feet or with your legs. And of course it means to hop, to sort of leap up. So hop up, leap up. There's this connotation of using your own energy to push off of the ground to gain altitude. So this is a jumping motion from the ground. It's a slightly different connotation than what we had earlier with the tobu to fly. It has nothing to do with feet necessarily, it's more about being suspended in the air. So this tobu is often coupled with a completely different oriru, and that oriru looks like this. So this character also still oriru. It also means to descend, but it doesn't have quite the same connotations of the last oriru. So you can see this is a little bit of an exploration into the connotations that characters have. Very similar things in other languages, but in the writing system, there's a bunch of things associated with the way that characters are used that give it its other meanings. And so this one you'll see used to mean sort of directly underneath almost, or directly down. So you'll see that character come up and it can mean down, it's like underneath. But the connotation still, right, is something in a downward direction. So it can still mean to descend, especially in oriru, but that character by itself can also mean down or underneath. So if you hop up to a down direction, the same connotation gets you to the same explanation of jumping off of something from a high elevation to a low elevation. The issue comes up when you have the three different ways of writing this. So tobi oriru in hiragana, and then we talked about having this way of writing it as well. And then our third way of writing it, we have and they all mean the same thing. So Tobioriru, they're all read the same, but the connotations are ever so slightly different. And in this scenario, the reason I chose this one in the episode 2 review and study videos, because typically when you see it written this way, it has the highest connotation of suicide. And it doesn't mean that you can't use the hiragana alone to mean suicide. Again, that top one there inherits all of the meanings of the ones beneath it, but it doesn't typically get used as frequently as, I would say, this one here that we've written out. So when you see this, just know that there are stronger connotations of suicide with this writing than the other two. And we can go deeper into those characters individually and talk about different ways that they're used, but I think this is a very simple way to describe the differences in the three different ways that are typically seen when you write out Tobioriru. In the episode 2 review and study, we referenced the second one there. That's the writing that we went with, and this is the deeper level understanding of why I ended up choosing that. Not that it was written out in the episode, but when they say Tobioriru, that's what comes to mind because of the suicide connotations. Again, we're talking specifically about Nice having jumped off of a rooftop to commit suicide. So this has been an extension of a review and study by your Anime Aniki. それじゃあ、次まで。